So, hello, we are here with Michael Collins, the CEO of Invest Europe, the voice of private equity in Europe. And Michael was here on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the Munich Private Equity Training Conference. Michael just gave an industry keynote on private equity, European private equity thriving in times of change. And maybe you can summarize in a few sentences what this keynote address was all about.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to. It's a great opportunity to be able to speak to so many private equity professionals here in Germany. And my message was that private equity really is thriving at the moment. Fundraising in 2017, 2018 was record highs. We're almost back to the peak levels of the years immediately running up to the financial crisis. So thriving is a very good way to describe what's happening with private equity. But it's also an industry that I think is showing a lot of stability and continuity. As I explained in my presentation, if you look at who it is that's investing in the asset class, there's a lot of stability. Pension funds consistently are the single biggest investors. We're consistently getting capital coming into Europe from outside. I think there's scope for us to do more, to attract more global capital, and in particular, there's scope for us to do more in the VC end of the market to get more private investment in and reduce the reliance on the government. But I think the signs are that private equity's strengths are going to continue to enable it to succeed over the years to come.
And Michael, you mentioned in your presentation a number of challenges, political challenges, business challenges, and private equity seems to be, being pretty resilient to all those, but they are in the world. And what are these challenges at the moment?
Yeah, I think any asset manager, certainly any private equity or venture capital manager, has got to be aware of and conscious of what is happening in the external environment. For some managers, that will be a bigger deal than for others. Obviously, for UK-based managers, the implications of Brexit are still being worked through. For continental European managers, probably the developments in the European Parliament elections and the new European Commission are things that they will need to keep an eye on. Over the course of the next year or two, we'll see a revision of the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive, AIFMD, which is the main piece of legislation for our industry. And I'm expecting that there'll be some quite significant changes to the regulatory regime, issues around remuneration, around the use of leverage by the industry, how managers disclose their fees. They're all going to come back onto the table over the course of the next year or two. So the industry will have to be aware of those regulatory changes. On top of that, we've got the big picture politics of what's happening at the global level. Ours is a very international industry. As I said, a lot of capital comes into Europe from outside. And any developments that are looking to roll back globalization, increase protectionism could be damaging to private equity. So there's a lot for people to keep their eyes and ears open for.
Thank you, Michael. And you mentioned also in your speech the growth of the importance of sustainability. Maybe you can say a few things, certain sentences on that, given also the new electoral process and the rise of the Green Party in many states.
I think that's a really important trend that has both a private equity industry dimension to it and a regulatory dimension. At Invest Europe, we've seen over the course of the last 5 years or so a real growth in interest in responsible investment and ESG. It's why we've spent a lot of time producing guidance for our members, running training courses on responsible investment, because LPs in particular have driven that higher up the agenda. What we're now seeing, and I think what we will see over the course of the life of the next European Parliament and European Commission, will be increased regulatory action on sustainable finance. I think fund managers are going to have to get used to the idea that they will have to report much more actively on the sustainability impacts of what they're doing. And they may well find a little bit further down the line that there are regulatory incentives to be more sustainable in their investment strategies. Many managers, I think, already take this very seriously, but those for whom this is a new agenda, I think, need to start taking it seriously.
And maybe final question now, Michael, on a personal note, after 14 years in Brussels, maybe what is your general take on Brussels, the city, the European, political process? Any insights or anecdotes would be appreciated.
Yeah, I've spent around about 25 years now in the world of work, and more than half of that has been in Brussels. So I know Brussels and know the EU machine pretty well. It's clearly gone through a challenging time as a project with Brexit. This is the first time that a member state has ever decided to leave the EU. But I remain very confident that the EU is going to continue to thrive. I think the underlying case for a single market, for free movement of people, free movement of capital is very, very strong, and it is a source of real strength for Europe. As to Brussels, it's a great city to live in. It's a great place to live, but it's also fantastically located. You can get everywhere from Brussels in 2 hours. So if you're ever looking for a place to relocate to, and if Polyphon Partners are ever looking to open a new office, I would strongly recommend Brussels be on your list.
Thank you very much, Michael. It was a great pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thanks.